This is episode 48 of the 99 Forever podcast. I'm Eric Friesen, and joining me to recap the Edmonton Oilers' victory over the Los Angeles Kings in Game 7 and preview the first playoff edition of the Battle of Alberta in 31 years are two contributors for HeavyHockey.com, Mike Dirsa and Kirk Morris. Guys, how are you doing tonight?
Doing pretty well. Getting a little nervous for Game 1 tomorrow, but excited to get it going.
Doing good here too, man. Yeah, likewise. Just getting anxious. Want to see some good old time hockey there.
Yeah, so you're not still riding the high from Game 7. You're just completely focused on the next series now.
Kind of, sorta. I don't know. I wrote an article there and posted. Well, you posted it there this morning, so pretty much sums it up right there. It was a damn good game. That was probably the best game they had all playoffs. Just like I said in the article, they cinched it down defensively and didn't really give LA any chance to breathe. At least that's what I thought, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an instant
Party
classic.
like a rock star Saturday night, but as Kobe Bryant would say, job's not finished.
Exactly. And, like when you look at that game in the McDavid era, it's got to be one of the most important games or biggest wins that he's been a part of and that this group has been a part of, wouldn't you say?
Well, absolutely.
Uh-oh.
I mean, I think the only one that you could argue might be bigger was in 2017 when they went to the seventh game of the second round and were that close, one goal away from going to the conference final. But just what a great game for this fan base and for everyone that's stuck with it through this team. For so many years.
Absolutely,
Eric,
man.
I'll say.
Sorry.
I'll say this might have actually been bigger than 2017 just because of the way they went out the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely plays a part in it. I think there's probably higher expectations for this group because of where McDavid and Draisaitl are in their careers, as opposed to in 2017, it was only Connor's second year in the league. It was Leon's second full season. So, yeah, I mean, when you think of it from that perspective, like, this team needed to take a step forward for a long time, and they should have won the last 2 years in the first round. So for them to finally get over that hump, I think was a big thing for them.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I can't. It was a bummer the last 2 years. Like especially last year. That they had it. Like at least
Mm-hmm.
Mike Smith pretty much backstopped. Like he played his arse off, and they just couldn't get over that hump. And yeah, it's. I think they're even better than the 2017 team is in my opinion. Anyways, they're just with the way that Woodcroft has them playing. Like, I think Woody has come in and kind of tempered them down when they're starting to maybe get a little out of their element. The positivity that he brings there too is just insane.
Yeah. And you know what, guys, like, honestly, I don't think I've ever been more excited to record an episode of this show before, because for the first time since I started the 99 Forever podcast in 2019, we have an Oilers series victory to talk about. And I mean, it all starts with that 2-0 victory over the Kings in Game 7. Connor McDavid was outstanding with a goal and an assist. Mike Smith stopped all 29 shots he faced for the shutout as the Oilers won the game, as I said, 2-0 and advanced to the second round for just the first time in 5 years. And you could just see the joy on the players' faces after McDavid buried the dagger with less than 4 minutes to play. It's what this team needed. It's what the fans in oil country needed. So I think we have to start by talking about McDavid tonight. Can you recall a more impressive Game 7 performance in recent memory than what we saw from number 97 on Saturday? Mike, I'll start with you.
The edge work exhibition that Connor put on is something I've never seen before. and he didn't score on it, and he didn't set anybody up. But I think it was in the third period. He kind of made the double kind of turn move, similar to what he did against Anaheim when he scored. But this time he added another spin. It was just incredible to watch. I mean, you're in a high pressure situation, and to have the presence of mind to be shaking people left, right, and center just to buy time with the puck to make a play was unbelievable. I mean, he had a goal and an assist, I guess, to show for it. But I mean, he was putting on a clinic all game. It was incredible. Like, really, honestly, since the tail end of Game 5, he was kind of willing this team into the fight. And in Game 6 and Game 7, he was willing them to victories when it mattered the most. And that's what you want out of your leader. That's what you want out of a captain. And that's what you want out of Connor McDavid.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone's going to focus on his scintillating performance in Game 7. But like you said, he was fantastic in Game 6 as well. When they were down by 2 goals in Game 5, he helped orchestrate that comeback to get the game to overtime. Just a fantastic series, a fantastic Game 7 from the captain of this hockey team. Kirk, go ahead. What more can you add to that? What can you say about the game that the Oilers captain had in the most important game of the year?
It was like he was just juiced. Like, he just couldn't be stopped, man. Like, like Leon said there at the end of the game, you know, during the post game presser there, like, he just said he literally willed this team into the second round. And I'm with Dirce. Like, I think that's probably the best performance I've seen him. Like, and I wasn't even in the building. I was in the building for Game 2, and I thought he played a pretty darn good game then too. But that Game 7, I think, is going to have people talking for many years to come.
Absolutely. And, you know, Connor McDavid really has been the most dominant offensive player since he entered the league in 2015. I mean, he already has 5 100-point seasons. He's won 9 individual awards, all by the age of 25. But as great as he's been in the regular season, his legacy will be made in the playoffs. And in what was arguably the most pressure-packed game of his career, I think McDavid had his most complete performance as an NHL player in Game 7. Here's his stat line from the game. He had a goal, an assist, 5 shots, 2 takeaways, 4 hits, and a +2 rating in 27 minutes and 23 seconds of ice time. He also tied the NHL record for most multi-point games in a playoff series with 6. McDavid also joined Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, Paul Coffey as the only players in franchise history to record 10 assists in a single playoff series. I mean, just, you can't say enough about what he's done offensively, but you know, he just continues to get better in other aspects of his game, on draws, battling in the corners for pucks, winning those battles. The defensive side of his game has taken a step forward. Mike, just what are you seeing from him outside of the obvious offensive brilliance that he brings to the table on a nightly basis?
There's a commitment to defending better, to, you know, get the puck back when he doesn't have it anymore. More recently, I think there's like shades of Pavel Datsyuk or Henrik Zetterberg from Detroit, when, you know, those guys would back check just as hard as they would go the other way. I think that's really what you see from Connor. He just doesn't want to lose, so he does everything it takes to win hockey games now, you know, within his power, and it's incredible to watch.
Kirk, did you think that Connor would reach this level, not just as an offensive player, but his two-way skills, taking his the other elements of his game to the next level as well?
Well, I think he just needed the proper push, you know, and leaning back towards last year again, like, they didn't want to, you know, fall back into that rut. And the one thing that really impressed me the most was he set the tone for Game 7 by hitting Sean Durzi. Like, he literally, he literally set the tone, and that when everybody else on the bench, looks at it, like, oh, okay, I got to step it up type of deal. And it was just like a wave. Like it just, it definitely had an impact on the team.
Yeah, and sorry to jump in there, but when your best player is willing to throw the body and play physical, it's pretty hard for every other guy on the team not to do that as well, right? And I think you said it perfectly. He set the tone with that hit early on. And speaking of Sean Durzi, it's kind of funny that on the insurance marker that that Connor scored late in the game, Durzi hooked him and completely gave up on the play after that. And Connor is the last guy in the world that you would want to just stop playing against, as he just quickly looped around the net and buried the backhand shot. I mean, I think that was a rookie mistake by him, and the best player in the world putting on like you kind of said, a clinic and just willing this team to victory. Well,
yeah, and the cardinal rule is you don't stop playing until the whistle's blown, and just like as you said there, he just gave up, and so did Andreas Athanasiou. Like they figured they touched up the puck, but there was no whistle blown down, and so. Yeah, it's kind of on them actually, and just allowed Connor to waltz right in and fork it home.
Mike, what did you see on that play? Did you think it should have been blown down, or was that a good goal?
I don't think Athanasiou actually had control of the puck, and that's kind of the rule. And he was frozen in time by Connor, and that was all it took.
Yeah, and I think Kings fans are probably going to be a little upset about that one, considering it's a 1-goal game late in the contest. But I would put the blame on their own players. They were standing around while the best player in the world has the puck behind their own net. I mean, Kirk, you said it perfectly. You don't stop playing until the whistle, and he made that look pretty elementary. And the celebration after was incredible too. It was Yakupov-esque.
Yeah, definitely, man.
If he doesn't finish that off, we've got a power play, and I'm pretty sure we ice it anyways. So
yeah, but
Kings fans can cry all they want. It's over.
Exactly, but you know what? I'm glad that he did score, because it just made that victory even more memorable. That your best player comes through in the clutch, scores that goal to send the game, or to send his team to the second round of the playoffs. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better finish to a Game 7.
Yeah, no, it was perfect, man. Like, and it literally lit up the crowd there, and that crowd was something else there too. I gotta say, like that, and the guys noticed it there as well. Like even Smitty said there in the end, like that's probably the loudest that crowd's ever been. So, or the building's ever been. So,
yeah,
that's awesome. When you got the crowd on your side, man, it's pretty hard to overcome that for sure.
Definitely. And, looking at the other end of the ice, there were a lot of Oilers fans angry with Mike Smith after his costly gaffe in Game 1. Some were even calling for Mikko Koskinen to start Game 2, but Smith owned up to it. He came back and posted 2 shutouts in the series, including one in the biggest game of the season to backstop the Oilers to a playoff series victory. Kirk, he didn't face a ton of glorious chances in that game, but he was stellar when the Oilers needed him to be, wasn't he?
Yeah, no. The Oilers basically owned the second period. They were practically in the LA end there for the entire second period with all those missed opportunities. But yeah, no. I like I said in my article there from this morning. Like I thought he owned up to it. He himself, he said, I made a mistake. You just got to move on, and it's only one game. You got to look ahead, not back. And I thought he was one of the bright lights here during the series. Through thick and thin. You can see what you can there about the overtime loss there in Game 5. I think, I don't know if the entire team was fighting illness or what, but it is where it is. And now they're moving on. It's the main thing.
Yeah, Mike, what can you say about Smith coming through in the clutch and posting a shutout for his team in Game 7?
Well, I definitely didn't have a Mike Smith shutout in Game 7 on my bingo card when this whole series opened up. I'll say that. He didn't have to face a lot of shots, but there were some dangerous chances, and he didn't give LA a sniff.
Yeah, I mean, he was good when he needed to be, but the Oilers controlled most of that game. I mean, the shots were heavily in their favor. I can't remember more than maybe 2 point-blank chances for the Kings in that game. So, even making those saves really got the crowd into it and gave the fans confidence in him again. And, when I look at how Smith has played over the last month and a half, he was the second star of the month in April, went 9-0-0. Came into the playoffs, had a rough start, but rebounded with 4 wins in the last 6 games. I just think that he's giving the Oilers the type of goaltending they need to go on a run. And it might be early to say that because we're just through the first round. But if he continues to play this way, I think that they have a good chance to, win another series here. Kirk, what do you think?
Yeah, no, well, what you said there was some fans were pretty riled up after game 1, and it was just like during the regular season, like what he's going to do. He's going to try to play the puck, feed it up ice there either to the defenseman or to the forwards and get him on a breakout situation and just moving ahead. Like if he continues to be the same, like he's posted a .931 save percentage there. I think it was .931 if I'm not mistaken. Going forward there against Calgary, like Calgary's going to be, they're going to have to make a move there, like to really get under his skin and try to get him out of his element there. But I think with all that veteran experience, he'll be fine. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I think he's also going to be really fired up to play his old team as well. And Mike Smith isn't a guy who seems to need a lot of motivation anyway. He's a pretty fiery character, but having the chance to beat his old club in the playoffs, I think we're going to see a really dialed in Mike Smith when they drop the puck tomorrow night.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's maybe some bad blood there will erupt again, and maybe another fight, maybe another goalie fight will erupt. You never know, right, Dirce?
This won't happen, but I'd love to see him go for long skates after every puck he freezes, but we won't see that. He'll be right in there and fight.
What are the chances Mike Smith takes a penalty in this series?
I think those are pretty good odds. Yeah.
Let's hope that he can keep it to 1 or 2. I mean, any more than that, it's getting a little excessive. But I think he won't be able to help himself at least once.
Yeah, no, I'll take 2 on the over/under.
I can just see Tkachuk get in his kitchen time after time one game, and he'll just have enough of it, and there will be a hack on the back of his legs or something like that, and it'll put the Oilers down for 2 minutes. But if Tkachuk gets chopped once or twice, I think that'll be a well worth penalty.
Tkachuk won't be the only one.
Yeah. And you know what, guys, as Jay Woodcroft often says, I thought that was a great team win. And I can't think of one guy who had an off night, but other than McDavid and Smith, who were clearly the first and second stars of the game, did anyone else really stand out to you in Game 7? Mike, go ahead.
I thought we had really good poise from the back end and basically everybody. I thought Cody Ceci, obviously scored the goal, and that was a goal where he outweighted Jonathan Quick and sniped a shot, but it was poise. And Keith and Bouchard earlier in the series had some struggles, but in Game 6 and Game 7, those guys were lights out too. There's Winston getting to pucks and using his legs, although even though everybody wants to say he's not 100%, I thought our D really stepped up and controlled the game. Zach Hyman was a force. Seidel or Mario Lemieux. I thought he played well. Yamamoto was kind of going to the nets and playing hard. I don't know that in a Game 7, to win Game 7s, you need everybody on board, and I I think that's kind of what we got there.
Yeah, that was as close to their best team effort that I think we've seen all season. Kirk, did anyone really catch your eye in the game? Who do you think was a standout player for the Oil?
I'll just hop on what Dirsa said there. Like, I thought Yamamoto was fired up there. He, his usual self there, trying to get into Quick's kitchen and trying to get him aggravated, trying to get him off his game. I thought, just everybody just throwing out hits. Like I said, after McDavid threw that hit on Dirsa, I think everybody just followed suit. Just with the physical play, and kept LA there, with limited chances there, especially playing that lockdown defense. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, it's hard to pinpoint, one guy who was, better than the rest of the group. Like you said, Yamamoto, I thought had a really strong game. Obviously had the assist. I like that he chipped the puck into open ice and just kind of let Connor skate into it. He also had such a point-blank chance earlier that he didn't convert on. Ryan McLeod, the way he's skating with the puck right now, you love to see it. He's just able to transition it up the ice so effortlessly. Even a guy like Josh Archibald, I mean, he's a lower in the lineup, didn't play much this year, but he's just such a tenacious, physical player out there. And I think he really adds something in the bottom six when he's on top of his game. Cody Ceci, I mean, the series clinching goal on a nice pass from down low from McDavid that he obviously put in the back of the net. Probably the biggest goal of Ceci's career, I would imagine. It's hard to say one of those guys stood out above the rest, but it just top to bottom, I really like the way that everyone in this lineup performed in that game. I mean, there were some guys who might have not had an overly noticeable game in a positive way, but I can't think of one guy who was like outright bad in that game.
Yeah, no, I gotta agree. I didn't see anybody that was just a passenger in that game. I liked even what Puljujärvi and Cassian were doing in limited minutes. You needed all hands on deck to win a Game 7, and that's what you got.
For sure. All right, let's move on to the Battle of Alberta now, where the Oilers and Flames will face each other in the playoffs for the first time in 31 years at the Saddle Dome on Wednesday. But before we preview the upcoming series, I want to know if you guys have any memories from the last time these clubs met in the playoffs in 1991. Dirsa, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, I was there when Theoren Fleury scored.
Oh.
And did his somersaults and slide on the ice. And I remember being a heartbroken little boy going home. And then a couple nights later in Calgary, Esa Tikkanen did the same thing to Flames fans that were there, breaking their hearts and winning that series and leading to, I believe, our last Stanley Cup as a franchise.
That was actually the year after the 90 Cup. But it was in 91, but they did reach the conference final where they were upset by the Minnesota North Stars in 1991. Kirk, same for you. Do you have any memories of that 91 series?
Just Esa Tikkanen going legend. He that clapper there from the Calgary blue line was a classic, and beating Mike Vernon there between the wickets, and that's the one that stood up there for me pretty much. Just Esa Tikkanen there being down 3-0, and then having Esa fire up the team, and like I said, go legend the entire game, and just filter down to everybody else.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm just pulling up the hockey reference game sheet from that game on April 16th, 1991. The Flames actually took a 3-0 lead in the first period. And then Esa Tikkanen scored late in the first to cut the deficit to 2. The Oilers scored 2 more goals in the second and then 1 in the third. The Flames ended up scoring a late one to send it to overtime, and then that's when Tikkanen sealed the deal with once also perhaps the biggest goal of his career. scoring that overtime winner, a very famous goal at the Saddle Dome. And I believe that it was also Chris Cuthbert calling that game 31 years ago. So he'll be doing the play-by-play for the series this year as well. And hopefully he'll get to call another one of those Oilers OT winners.
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah, I know. And he even said it on Twitter there. I think it was either yesterday or today. He said he can't believe he's getting another chance to call another Battle of Alberta series there, and he's definitely fired up for it there as well. And his broadcast partner there, Craig Simpson, the last time that was that he was playing the last time.
He was playing in that series.
Yeah. So he'll be pretty fired up as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, and Craig Simpson doesn't get to do many Oilers games, so I'm sure that is something that he'll be excited to do, call his old team where he won 2 Stanley Cups in 88 and 90, and I believe he still lives in Edmonton too, so getting to stay at home or not have to travel very far to go to Calgary as well, I'm sure it will be nice for him. Looking ahead now, Leon Draisaitl clearly played through some serious discomfort after turning his ankle in Game 6 when he was taken down by Mikey Anderson after the whistle. However, he really gutted it out in Game 7 to help his team win the series. And Ken Holland confirmed on Bob Stauffer's show today that Draisaitl will play in Game 1 tomorrow night. I just want to know, would you guys give Draisaitl a couple extra days off to allow his ankle to heal, or is he just too valuable to keep out of the lineup even if he isn't playing at 100%? Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd like to know from the doctor really where he's at with that. He can do more damage to it, or if he's at a point of no return anyway. That would kind of help me make my decision on what I would do there, but I don't know. I don't think you want to give Calgary any advantage throughout the series. So I think if it was a 50-50 thing, I would dress him.
And Kirk, how about you?
I'd leave it up to the player personally. If Leon wants to play, let him play. High ankle sprains are no joke. I've had one there before, and it can be pretty darn hard to walk, let alone skate there, and push off on it. So I'd personally leave it up to Leon, but I'm not the coach or the manager, so
yeah,
that's from my point of view.
He definitely looks very labored when he's skating, and he didn't seem to have the same power and explosiveness in his first step that he normally has. And thankfully the Oilers didn't need him to carry the load offensively with Connor in Game 7. They were able to put together a low-scoring, tight-checking win. Now, he still did play a considerable amount of minutes. I believe he played over 18 minutes in that game, if I'm not mistaken. So, he was able to still tough it out. But going into a game against the Flames, a tougher opponent in their barn, the Oilers really need to win at least one of the games at the Dome. Like coming home with a split is crucial. And I think that even if Draisaitl is playing at only 60% or 70%, it's still worth having him out there because he's so smart. He makes great decisions with the puck. He passes the puck as well as anyone in the league, especially on the backhand. He's the best passer in the league on the backhand. And taking that one-timer off the Oilers' power play, that would be a huge weapon to lose. It's the second best weapon the Oilers have behind McDavid's speed, so it would be a huge advantage for Calgary if he sat even one game, and I'm sure he knows that. So it makes sense that he would end up playing Game 1 tomorrow night in Calgary. We saw McDavid and Draisaitl briefly reunited on the same line when the Oilers were down in Game 5 and again in Game 6 against the Kings. Do you anticipate we'll see them play together at 5-on-5 again in this series? Kirk, how about you lead things off?
Well, it's always the nuclear option, right? And you can always defer back to it there. I think Woody will start them out, split apart, depending on how Leon is with his ankle once again. But yeah, no, I could definitely see him, loading up that top line there to give it a push once again if they're in dire straits. But I think for that game one there in Calgary, I think it'll be a litmus test. Everybody will try to, feel out the game type of process and then go from there. And just see how it all unfolds out.
And Mike, how about you? Would you keep McDavid and Draisaitl together, or do you like them better apart?
These last couple of days, back and he's got some more mobility, and he can actually play center instead of having to play left wing. Then you could go back to splitting them up. But I'm kind of thinking that if his ankle isn't very good, that he's going to be on Connor's wing, and Connor can do a lot of the heavy lifting, and Leon can just kind of glide along and go to the quiet areas of the ice and score goals.
And that's a good point too. I mean, putting those two together might not be out of a desperate situation, but more that the Oilers just can't have him down the middle right now because he's not able to play the center position as well as he'd like to. And the fact that they have multiple other centers, I mean, you can have still Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Ryan McLeod down the middle. Devin Shore could play some center for you if he really needed to. Derek Ryan can play center. Like there's enough options. And I mean, yes, it does take some of the talent off your second line by, taking a former MVP and scoring champion off that second unit, but putting him together with the best player in the world, as you described it, Kirk, I mean, that does give you the nuclear option. And even if it's only semi-nuclear because of how Draisaitl's feeling at the moment, it's still a pretty great weapon to have in your arsenal.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't be surprised even in game one if like as Dirsa said, it depends on how his ankle is shaping up there throughout the game. You can always, I think Woody always goes to load up the top line even at like the last minute of the periods or whatever, just to get that little extra push or so. I wouldn't be surprised
that move that he does too.
Oh yeah, no, it's a shrewd tactic, just to try to sneak one in and before the period ends for sure.
And remember, Dave Tippett often used to put them out together for a shift following a penalty kill. I don't know if we see it as often as we used to, but every once in a while, they'll still get about 30 seconds to 45 seconds together after killing off a penalty. I just think that with how he's able to play right now, you want to give him the most sheltered minutes you can. And, playing with Connor McDavid, you're not going to get sheltered minutes. But he might be able to do, like you said, kind of protect him a little bit, take some of the load off because he doesn't have the pressure to drive his own line. He can kind of work his way back in. But once again, if this is a high ankle sprain, then it's not going to heal overnight. He might be dealing with it for the rest of the playoffs. And, that's obviously a hindrance to the Oilers' chances to go on a deep run. So that was the only reason why I thought before maybe they give him a couple extra days to rest. But, I mean, if he has even 4 more days, does it make that big of a difference? I'm not sure. Okay. Let's talk about Jesse Puljujarvi now. And, he's obviously a fan favorite in Edmonton, and he has such strong two-way skills, but he had a tough series against the Kings with just 2 points in 7 games and averaged under 10 minutes of ice time per night. He might also be playing through an injury right now, too. We're not 100% sure, but what does Puljujarvi need to do to have more of an impact against the Flames than he did against the Kings? Mike, what do you think?
I like the way he was playing in Game 7. I thought he was playing more in straight lines. I like because it might have been bad. LA would have the puck, and he wasn't really going after the puck carrier. He was kind of making looping plays and taking the scenic route to forecheck, and that doesn't really work in the playoffs. You might get away with that in the regular season, but that is not a winning strategy in the playoffs. So I think in Game 7 he kind of got into more of a heat-seeking missile mode where he was going right at the guy that had the puck and in straight lines instead of the long looping kind of. I mean, he's trying to be defensively responsible, but in the playoffs, I think you need to inflict a little bit of damage and hurry up the offensive team to create turnovers to go the other way. And I think he was doing that more in Game 7, and against Calgary, I think you step it up another notch and sacrifice a little bit of defensive responsibility and go your big body, go inflict some damage, create some turnovers, and start funneling everything to the net. Go to the net, create havoc in front of the net, and bang in rebound goals. And they don't have to be pretty, but go create a scene, and just get your hands dirty.
Yeah, and who would you play him with?
Honestly, I didn't mind him and Cassian together. I know a lot of people frown upon that, but I think he watches Zach, and Zach's hitting everything that moves, and that can kind of wear off on him, and he starts to pick up a little bit of that. But the two of those guys, if they're together, they need a good center. I think it's got to be either Ryan McLeod or Connor. So. Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is too, like the Flames don't line match as much as the Kings do. Daryl Sutter was going to want to roll 4 lines, whereas for the Kings to be successful, they needed to have their top 2 defensive centers out against McDavid and Draisaitl as much as possible, and they were still able to overcome that, which is another reason that gives me hope going into this series, because the Flames don't have 2 shutdown guys like that, at least up front. For a guy like Jesse, I think he thrives more in a top 6 role, but at this time of year, if it's playoffs and he is struggling a little bit, it's hard to say that's a permanent spot for you. And maybe things will get juggled around because of the Draisaitl situation. We also saw, I think, about 6 different line combinations, I think in Game 6, when Darnell Nurse was out because of the suspension. They were just running, it seemed like a different line out there, shift after shift, all these different combinations from Hyman and Nuge playing with Connor too. You'd see him out there another shift with Leon and Yamamoto. Just there was no set lines for even a full period, I think. And going into a game against the Flames where they are going to come at you wave after wave with their forecheck and with their lines, you're going to have to be ready for it. And if Jesse has a set spot on the team in the lineup where he knows he's going to play night after night, I think that gives him a better chance for success. Kirk, what do you think?
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of the 11-7 setup, right? Like you can definitely roll out whatever you want there. You definitely have you could shuffle the deck of cards there and give them fits. Like the downside of it is if Jesse doesn't really secure that, like doesn't lock it down within the first or second shift, or he'll be lost in the wash. And I'm like every other fan out there, I want him to succeed. I want him to finish, especially in front of the net. And, I think for him going into the series, just to get in front of the net, create havoc there with that big body, get that big frame in front of Markstrom and create some screens and just shoot from the point or shoot from wherever, just give him fits.
I think the scoring touch will come too. Like I know you mentioned that, and maybe he'll never be a 30-goal guy. We don't know, but I think that he does have the potential to score 20 to 25 goals. He does have to bear down on a few more of those chances, but this is a player that does a lot of good things other than putting the puck in the net too. We have to remember that. He's a player that contributes at both ends of the rink. He does a lot of the dirty work for Connor. He can extend plays. He's got that size and that long reach. But if he could put a few more pucks in the net, that would obviously help too. Mike, just going back to you, do you agree that if Jesse has sort of a set of line mates for the entire series, it improves his chances of success than having him move around dependent on the game?
I kind of think that if he's playing well, he's going to not be shuffled throughout the lineup. So it all hinges on his play. But yeah, I mean, if you have, the same line mates, you get to know their tendencies and what they're all about, and it's easier to play the game for sure.
Definitely. Looking at their opponent now, what do you think will be the biggest challenge for the Oilers to overcome against the Flames in this series? Kirk, sorry, you go ahead.
No worries, man. I think just leaning back to the regular season, the way they played Connor, they, sometimes they, just get in his kitchen and not try to, allow him to create havoc or create plays. I think puck movement is a big deal for Edmonton. They gotta move it quick. The thing about Calgary is they're deep. And if they do have Tanev and Shillington playing, their defense is going to be cranked up to 11 there as well.
And it sounds like Tanev won't play in game one, and Shillington might not as well, right?
Well, I don't know. I looked at the Calgary Twitter feed there today, and they were on the ice skating, so could be a game time decision, or it could be, it could be just could be just a fluke.
Mental games. Could be a mental game. A bit of gamesmanship between Sutter and Woodcroft, keep him on his toes.
Pretty much, yeah. so I think just the overall, it'll be a run and gun. I'm assuming it will be a track meet there, but I don't know. I think that first game is going to be the litmus test, and it's going to set the tone for sure, just like any other series.
And Mike, what do you think will be the toughest obstacle for the Oilers to go up against when they take on Calgary tomorrow night?
There's an emotional high from winning a series in Game 7. So, are you fully over that and focused on the second round, or are you still living in the riding of beating the Kings? If they're clear their minds of what they want Saturday night, they'll be just fine. This team can compete with the Calgary Flames. I mean, Jacob Markstrom is a really good goalie, but if Smith plays like he did through the most of the series, I think we'll be fine. Have to match kind of Calgary's physicality that they're going to want to bring, but not get sucked into a lot of the scrum shenanigans and make Calgary take penalties and just light them up with the power play.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think that if the Oilers can get as many opportunities with the man advantage that they had in the first series, then it does increase their odds. And I think that there were still a lot of missed calls, but at the same time, it was an improvement from years past, at least. So we have to look at it as a positive there. This is going to be a physical series. That the Flames are going to want to play a big, tough style. They're going to lean on the Oilers. They're going to give McDavid as little space as possible. So he's going to have to break through that. Do you think that he has a chance to be even more offensively dynamic against the Flames than against the Kings because they don't have the shutdown centers that the Kings had, but the Flames probably have a better defense? So where does that all come out? Kirk, go to you.
it's tough to say. Like I said, I don't want to defer back to the regular season there, but I think you have to kind of create open spaces there for allow Connor to do his thing. I'm not sure. Anything can happen. As Dirsa said there, that house will probably be rocking there in Calgary, and same thing, with that emotional high, keep yourself in check type of deal. It might be good, it might be bad. Until the puck drops, you never know what's really going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, but I just think that the way he's playing right now, it almost seems like it doesn't matter what team he comes up against, he's going to be able to put up his points. Mike, do you anticipate another 2-point per game average from McDavid in this series?
I think he's going to go to another level again. I really think that he's in that refuse to lose kind of mindset, and he will do whatever it takes to will this team, forward. I'm not saying they're going to win the series, but he's going to do his best to keep them in the fight for sure. If not, lead the charge and get them into the third round. I just think that, LA actually has better team speed. So I think, Calgary's a little slower, but they're also a little bigger, and it's going to be more of a trench warfare kind of game. But I do think he's going to find ways to get his open ice and get his.
And he might not get a lot of it either. Like maybe there'll only be 2 or 3 chances a game. But as long as the puck ends up in the back of their net on one of those 3 opportunities, then that's going to be a huge plus for the Oilers. And that's just off the rush. I expect that he'll be able to create offense through the cycle in the offensive zone, as well as if they do get a power play or two. So I think, he is going up against maybe even a better goalie than he played in the first series in Quick, and an improved defense if they're healthy. But right now, he just seems like he's not going to be stopped. He's going to continue to lead this team. And hopefully we're going to see even more guys step up. Like there were some depth goals being scored in this series, and if that can continue and they can get contributions from throughout the lineup, then they're going to have a much better chance, because that Calgary does have several strong offensive attackers as well. They had 3 40-goal scorers this year, so Mike Smith is going to be tested as well. How big of a factor do you think Evander Kane is going to be in this series, both from a physical perspective as well as an offensive perspective? Mike, I'll go back to you. What do you see from Kane in this series?
I think I think the Kane acquisition is really going to be, tested in this series. I think, acquiring him all of a sudden turned us from the team that, got pushed around a little bit to a team that can push back. And I think he's woken up, a couple of sleeping beauties in Zach Cassian and Josh Bald, and there's some other guys that are willing to play a physical brand of hockey now. Because they probably feel, a little bit taller and a little bit more bulletproof than they did before we had him. I really think his speed, his physicality, his ability to fight, and his ability to score off the rush are going to pay dividends in this series. I'm looking forward to watching Evander Kane playing his first Battle of Alberta in the playoffs, and yeah, it should be fun.
Kirk, I'll go to you. What do you think Kane's chances of having a major impact in the series are, both from, like I said, being able to play an aggressive physical style and also contribute offensively?
100%. He 7 goals there in the first series pretty much says it all. Granted, a few were empty netters, but still, like he contributes to all factors. And I wouldn't mind seeing him and Lucic drop the mitts there and have at her there too. That'd be an interesting tilt. But yeah, no, he's definitely the X factor. And he he makes it happen. Like he'll deliver a hit, or make a play, or he's got a lethal shot as he did as he's demonstrated all season there since he's joined.
7 goals in 7 games in the playoffs alone. He had 22 goals in half a season during the regular season with the Oilers. I mean, I think that he's exceeded all expectations to this point.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you can't ask any more from the guy, and I think he'll definitely bring that physicality along with Cassian and Archibald, and just it'll be another tool in the toolbox he'll definitely use for sure.
And we saw him moved away from McDavid a little bit recently because of some of those line juggling situations and going with 11 forwards and 7 D-men. Do you think that it's a wise decision to just keep him just stapled to Connor for the rest of the series, have a one-shot scorer like that with the best playmaker on the team? Mike, what would you do with Kane in terms of finding a spot for him in the lineup?
Yeah, that still goes back to where Leon's at.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of what makes a lot of your lineup decisions right there, because if you kind of have to, if you're put in a position where you've got to put Leon out there with Connor just because he's having a hard time, then I don't think you want to load that up with Evander Kane. I think what Woodcroft was doing before Kane with Hyman and Nuge, I think is probably the thing to do. But I mean, if Leon's okay to center his own line, then put him out there with Connor, and that gives Connor a little bit of protection for the shenanigans as well. But your decision's kind of made based on how Leon's doing.
And if he does end up playing with Nuge, I mean, that gives him another shooter to play with as well. Like, let's not forget, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is an excellent passer. And, before McDavid came to town, he was the top playmaker on the team who was running the power play off the half wall. So, and even in the bumper position too. So to have him have another goal scorer in his line like that, I mean, that gives him an option on the left side with Vander Kane. And the great thing about Hyman playing as off wing is you can also move him back to the right side if you have to. So I wonder if we're going to see a lineup that looks something like that tomorrow night. But time will tell. Okay, just to wrap up the show here, I want to do some predictions with you guys. So who will lead the Oilers in goals and who will lead them in points in this series, and how many will they finish with? Kirk, take it away.
Gotta go with Connor once again.
For both?
Yeah, for sure. I'd have to say 6 goals. Probably about 12 points. Split it right down the middle once again.
I mean, that'd be another awesome series. Evander Kane obviously did lead the Oilers in goals in the first round with 7, and Connor in points with 14. Mike, what are your predictions?
Yeah, I'm going to say that McDavid puts up 16 points in this series. Wow. And I'm going to say Evander Kane, he has 6 goals in the series too.
13 goals through 2 rounds. That would get him only 6 away from tying the NHL record for most goals in a single playoff year. Makes you think that he'd have a good chance to be the first player to ever get to 20 in NHL history if he had a round like that. And the way he's shooting the puck right now, it could happen. And the final question for you guys tonight, and I think we're all on the same page here, but who will win the series and how many games? Mike, I'll let you go again.
I don't want to do this because I called the Oilers in 5 over the Kings, and it ended up going 7.
I also had Oilers in 5, and it felt like Oilers in 6 seemed like the safer option, but I thought that they would have maybe a little easier time with them than they ended up having, and credit to the Kings for pushing them as hard as they did. But yeah, anyway, go ahead.
And not that I'm superstitious, but I may be a little stitious. I shaved my playoff beard that I had going on Saturday before the game. So, and we still found a way to win that. So maybe
okay.
maybe I'm panicking over nothing, but yeah, I think this is our year to get to the Western Conference Final. I don't want to call how many games though.
Okay.
I'm checking it out.
Well, Kirk, I hope you're not going to shave your playoff beard.
No, I'm not that superstitious or even a little bit stitious. I'll I if you follow me on Twitter, I posted all my predictions there, just like the first round, and I'm gonna say, what the hey, Oilers in 7, make it another legendary series, just like the last Battle of Alberta.
I've got Oilers in 7 as well, and I mean, because there's going to be 4 games on the road, they have to at least win 1 game in their building, and why not get it out of the way in game 1 tomorrow night? Guys, I just want to thank you again so much for joining me on the podcast tonight to preview this series and talk about an epic Game 7 that I don't think Oilers fans will forget anytime soon. Probably for the younger generation, one of the most memorable games that they've ever seen. And even I've been watching this team for over 20 years now, and it's right up there at the very least the top 10 of the most memorable Oiler games I've ever watched. The 2006 run takes up quite a few of those spots, but let's hope that this year's playoff run can also reach the final, and we'll have a whole new list of memories to add to that list. So thanks again, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me there, Eric.
All right, so for Mike Dirsa and Kirk Morris, I'm Eric Friesen. This has been the 99 Forever podcast. We're out.